Hello everybody, Professor Adams here. I'm sorry there was a mix-up today. I'm very sick. I have the flu. Literally, I have the chills as I'm talking to you right now. Fever, you name it, I have it. I think they put the no class today on the wrong classroom, the one we had the first day. I don't think they ever officially changed it. So I apologize for the mix-up today. I'm going to quickly, because like I said, I feel like death. I'm going to quickly go over your review guide for you guys since I wasn't in class to do it today. So I'm going to do that really fast. Okay, so here we go. The first one, Federalist Paper number 10, there's an entire video on that already. Go to the video entitled Political Science 316, Federalist Paper 10, and there's like a 6-minute video about that. Reapportionment, redistricting, court-mandated limits. Remember, every 10 years, the Census Department re-estimates how many people there are living in the country. So the first thing to do is they figure out how many districts each state gets, and of course this only applies to the House because each state gets 2 senators no matter how many people are in the state. So in the House though, if you have more people, you get more districts. So the first thing to do is reapportionment, where they figure out how many districts get to go to each state. Then after they figure out how many, in California it's 53, then they redistrict, and that's where you actually draw the boundaries. And drawing the boundaries is called redistricting, and this is where gerrymandering takes place. Now, typically, state legislatures are the ones that do the redistricting and the gerrymandering. Of course, that means that you're manipulating boundaries to favor one political party over another. And there are some limits to this. There's no malapportionment, like Westbury versus Sanders. Also, there are limits to minority-majority districting. You can draw districts so that there are more minorities, but that can't be the only criteria. And then recently, California and Arizona have tried to appoint independent panels of judges, which the Supreme Court just last summer said that they could do in a 5-4 decision. Exclusive House and Senate powers. Exclusive to the House. Revenues begin in the House. Impeachment belongs in the House. Also, when you're talking about the House can elect the President of the United States if there's no electoral college majority. Exclusive Senate powers, advise and consent, which means confirmation, ratifying treaties with the 2/3 vote, electing the vice president if there's no electoral college majority, and holding the trial in the case of if somebody gets impeached and the trial is held in the Senate. The case for legislative supremacy, I covered this the first day. This is about the fact that half of the words in the Constitution come from Article 1. Also, most of the Constitutional Convention was spent talking about the legislature. When you also talk about all the other branches, the courts and the executive departments, they really just left it to the Congress to flesh them out and to create them as they please. Also, I think the fact that the Congress can remove a judge and the Congress can remove a president, but not the other way around, is another claim of legislative supremacy. And also we know about the important clauses, the Commerce Clause and the Necessary and Proper Clause, which have greatly augmented legislative power in the last 80 years or so. The Constitution and Congress, make sure you know about the Necessary and Proper Clause, make sure you know about the Commerce Clause. There's a lot to say there. You go back and look it up. It would take me too long to talk about all of it right now, but we had a long lecture on that, so make sure you know that. Divided government. Divided government, of course, is when the legislature is in one hand and the presidency is in another. Earmarks are pork barrel. That's when congressmen bring projects back to their home districts to prop up their chances for re-election. It's an example of constituent casework. Make sure you guys know about that. Political career trajectory. If you want to be a president, typically you want to go, from the House to maybe being a governor and then running for president. Sometimes, a lot of senators run for president, even though only 4 out of 44 have come from the legislature and gone right into the White House. Only 4 out of 44. That's less than 10%. And typically that's because Congress is seen as a collaborative position. You're working with 534 people. You're not enforcing anything. You're not executing anything. You're not leading anything. That's why governors and vice presidents and generals or secretary of states are better stepping stones to the presidency because you're actually running something. Connolly. Our system is not one of a single party being in power. How is this the case? Because we're not a parliamentary system. We're a system of Madisonian checks and balances. We don't, in parliamentary systems, the prime minister always comes from the majority party in the parliament. Our system is not like that. The majority party has advantages in the legislature, but the minority party still has to govern, especially in the Senate, where they can really slow things up and force compromise. And most of all, we're not party government because the president, usually from 1968 to today, typically they are in different parties. That's because the American people don't trust either party completely, and so they constantly elect one party for the president and one party for the Congress. That's how we're not a party government, and it leads to gridlock, and it leads to things going slowly, and it leads to a lot of frustration at times. But that's our system. How does the Senate act as a counterweight to the Democratic forces of the House? Well, the Senate acts as a counterweight because you don't just need a 51-vote majority. We all know the way that the Senate has evolved in the last 20 or 30 years or so, is that nowadays the minority can filibuster anything that they think is important, which seems like it's everything nowadays. Rule 22, which talks about the fact that you need to, evoke cloture or 60 votes if you're going to cut off debate. So the Senate isn't going to roll over. If you have Republicans in the House and Republicans in the Senate, doesn't mean Republicans are going to get their way, because Republicans in the Senate are going to be thwarted by a group of Democratic senators who might not agree with what the majority wants. In fact, they probably don't. And not only that, you would need 60 votes in the Senate to be able to get your way in the Senate, which is very difficult to happen nowadays. And of course, it acts as a counterweight to the monarchical forces of the presidency, because the Senate has to approve all the president's nominees for the court and for the cabinet and for the ambassadorships, and has to ratify the treaties that the president negotiates. So it's also a counterweight to the monarchical forces of the president and the democratic forces of the House in both of those ways. The House is obviously more rule-bound than the Senate is. This is what the Freedom Caucus is currently pissed off about right now, is that they are very rule-bound, and that leadership exerts a tremendous amount of power over individual members, and they don't like that. They want a more of a decentralized, organic power structure, and that cost our beloved congressman the speakership, unfortunately. Democracy, republicanism, and the need for complex, not simple majority rule. Democracy, republicanism, remember, we are not a pure democracy. Citizens don't write laws. We elect people who write the laws, and so we believe in complex majority rule. We believe that it's not just important for the majority to be able to govern, which is, in a democracy, the majority does get its way, but you also have to allow for the minority to marshal forth a set of opinions and to have enough power to get concessions from the majority. Again, you want majority rule, but you also want minority rights. Remember, in our country, the minority of today can become the majority of tomorrow, and that only happens if the minority has its rights. And so there's all kinds of, if we just wanted almost a pure democracy, we wouldn't have bicameralism. We'd just have a House. We wouldn't have a Senate. We wouldn't have an executive branch. We'd have kind of what they had in the Articles of Confederation. The Mayhew article, you guys can read that about credit claiming and position taking and all that kind of stuff. Quality candidates and incumbency advantage. That's what your free responses were about, so I know that you guys have looked that up. Quality candidates, so remember that. Very few candidates ever go against, very few incumbents ever go against a quality candidate. And a quality candidate has to have two specific criteria to be a quality candidate. One, you have to have held elective office before, and you have to be able to raise enough money to be competitive. Remember, very few congressmen ever face quality candidates, and even those who do still win 75% of the time. Washington's explanation of bicameralism. Remember, the House of Representatives is the coffee cup that has all the hot tea, and it's overflowing, and it's passionate, and it's extreme. And then, of course, you don't want those people and those momentary passions to become law, so you have to have the Senate who cools the passions of the people, who slows things down, who becomes deliberative, who gives the minority its right to speak out. Okay, and important clauses, Article 1, Section 8. Again, Commerce Clause and Necessary Proper Clause. Okay? Hope this is helpful, everybody. Again, this is not, everything you need, but it should give you a kind of a starting point. I apologize again for the confusion today. There's no way for me to have made it into class today. Hopefully, I'll be better by Wednesday. Okay? Bye, everybody. Good luck.